Yeah, not already,
Yeah.
because we also have the snowbirds who left, flying the coop. Okay. We offer a bracha, baruch, atah, Adonai, Eloheinu, melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu la'asot b'divrei Torah. Amen. Okay. So, welcome to this class and those who are zooming, shalom, and Lynn.
Would you tell those who are zooming that I will try to email the handout to them in
Okay,
a
there's one
minute?
page handout and Lynn will try to email it to all of you. Okay, so, today is about the Haggadah, but it's easy to say Haggadah, it's easy to say it. And that's sort of like the Yiddish, I guess, or the Ashkenazi version. In Hebrew, it is Haggadah. And I'm not going to go through the whole Haggadah and explain all the things because hopefully those of you who are coming to our Seder on the week of Saturday night, you will hear that. If you're not coming, then you won't hear it, okay? Because I'm not going to go through a whole class of Seder. But I thought today what I'd like to do is just to point out a couple of things as I build it. Those parts of the Seder that you have probably always skipped over, or possibly for those of you who, when you were younger, Angela, okay, and you went to your grandma or grandpa's Seder, and he did the whole thing in Hebrew or Yiddish, and you didn't understand one word he said, but he went flying through it and did the whole book, right? Yeah, 3 minutes flat, okay. So anyway, I'm going to also give you an overall view of the important parts of the Seder, at least for me, so that if you want to do, if you're doing your own Seder, how to do a Seder within an hour. I mentioned the story the other night at services, but for those of you who weren't there, as a rabbinical student at Hebrew Union College in New York, I got a call from the New York Board of Rabbis asking me if I would be able to be available to do a Seder at Mount Sinai Hospital, which is certainly definitely one of the Jewish hospitals in New York, a very large hospital, probably 1,000 beds, God knows how many, and it is a kosher hospital. And for a matter of fact, when they rebuilt one of their wings, they actually had built into the wall over every single bed an electric Shabbat candles in the wall. So that if a person wanted to, they could push the light on in the wall. I mean, really very Jewish place, to say the least. And so I said, sure, and I asked the question, and considering I was in my 20s, still a rabbinical student, learning a lot. And obviously I tried to be a good student, so I was very focused on that. And I said, well, how long is a Seder? But that was really the wrong question, as I found out later on, and they said 2 hours. So, see, like this book here, every page I had post-its all over the place. Found out this meaning, that meaning. I actually found out 40 different meanings, according to the various rabbis over the centuries, 40 different reasons why 4 cups of wine. 40, over 40 different reasons. So I had all 40 post-its, and it was just unbelievable. So I get to there, and as I said, there were about 400 people in attendance, and they actually had china and real silverware, which is kind of impressive that they store this for once a year, because it had to be kosher for Passover. And invited were obviously patients, staff members, and also was open up to the community. For those of you who might not know, Mount Sinai is about 100th Street off Fifth Avenue, and on Central Park East. So anyway,
Is there parking?
Central Park East, yeah.
No, is there parking for your car?
No, forget that, it's New York, okay. So anyway, I opened up to the community, and it was very impressive. So I get to there and I said, well, I'm all ready, and you said 2 hours, right? They said, yeah, 2 hours including the entire meal. So I said, well, how long is my part? They said, oh, an hour. So all of a sudden I had to throw out this post-it, that post-it, and reorient myself. So I ended up being able to do this, but it turned out to, hi Barbara, to help me very much, because I continued not only temple seders and nursing homes and whatnot, but to be able to do a seder that before the meal part within 45 minutes approximately. I hate to say it, but most people appreciate that. Most people are not into really doing this entire thing. Now, The Haggadah itself, most of it was written and composed by the rabbis 2,000 years ago during the rabbinic period, which I mentioned before. So it really goes back quite a long time ago. And it really is an amazing, amazing literary work of art for the rabbis. Now, first of all, to say, if you were to read just straight through, you have nothing to do one day, you just read it through by yourself, you would say this makes no sense at all. There's no order to anything, everything is mishmash. Why is this here? Why is that here there? And you're exactly right, because guess what? 2,000 years ago, they didn't care. Okay, we, especially if any of you have ever written anything, you give it to an editor, or you give it to your wife, in my case, and the editor will make sense of everything, time-wise and whatnot. 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, the Torah itself, they didn't care about that. And so things are just shoved in here, shoved in there, because a sense of time and order is very different than today. So, yes, then,
Was it written down about
yes, oh yeah,
2,000 years ago?
yeah. Because remember, 2,000 years ago, they still had parchment, and like the hieroglyphics and the Egyptians, so they had parchment and whatnot, and so certainly these things were written down. It was,
The average person had it written.
no,
No.
no, certainly 2,000 years ago, there were very few people who had a Seder like we had today, but they had something, because it goes back, of course, to the Bible itself, which I'll point out to a while, okay? So, maybe I'll do it this way, take out this piece of paper that you have, okay? This was very, actually, I put the book back in my car. I bought this new Haggadah this year, by these three Sephardic Yemenite rabbis. And I came across these 2 pages here, I thought they're very interesting, how it puts together everything in a very nice chart. So if you look on the right side, obviously, is the Seder plate, called Seder tray. And therefore, these are the various things on the Seder. Okay, so carpus, celery, basil, egg, corrosive, shank bone of the bone, matzot, romaine lettuce, gazerin, and maror. That's the romaine lettuce, the bitter, right? Okay, got it? Or also maror is what? Also horseradish. Okay, so how do we use it? Okay, so carpus. After we wash our hands without a blessing, we dip the carpus into salt water. Why? The Hebrew word carpus has the words 60 myriads of Jews were forced to do parah, breaking work. So the carpus, which represents the breaking, like the breaking of bricks and the working hard. Remember, do not eat too large a piece about an inch long is fine. But now when they're talking about in the last column about remembrance, this is written by an Orthodox rabbi. And they actually specify the amount of each one of these things you're supposed to eat in order to fulfill Jewish law and custom. They're very specific, as Reformed Jews are probably not as specific. Okay, now here it says carpus, celery. What do we use today usually for carpus? Parsley. Parsley, okay. Parsley, of course, also remember, all of the foods and this creation of the rabbis, the Seder, is really amazing, okay? Everything has a meaning to it. Carpus represents 2 things. Springtime, because it's a vegetation, but also it is bitter to remind us of the bitterness of slavery. Everything to its taste is either bitter or sweet. Bitterness, slavery, sweet, freedom. Okay. Base of the egg. We eat the egg before the meal. Remember that? And some of us dip it into salt water. We eat a cooked egg to remember the Karban Haggadah. There were 2 offerings that were presented at Passover and eaten, presented to God, the Holy Temple in Jerusalem, and were eaten by individuals as well. Both items must be roasted. So you had a roasted egg, right? And then you had to have some meat form. Hi, Tony. You had to have some meat form. Tony, take a piece of paper on that. No, look on that paper there in front of you. Take a Haggadah, and there's a single piece of paper next to it.
Fine.
Great. Okay. And go through this piece of paper. So that you needed to have a roasted item. So that when you have your meal, you had either what? What do you eat normally? What? Roasted chicken? Or some people serve brisket? No ham, okay, or brisket, okay, roast, right, one of the two roasted. You need to have two roasted items. Everything has meaning, and so it's roasted because in biblical times, they offered it to carbonate, an offering to God that was roasted, cooked. That's what you give to God. Obviously, you gave it to the Kohanim and they ate it. Eventually, when they had a Seder was created, then you, of course, the individuals at the Seder plate ate it at one point in time. I'm sure all of you know, the hard-boiled egg must be hard-boiled first. Do not roast. Yeah, and don't put it in the microwave either. Okay. Also, some people say that the egg represents what? Springtime. Obviously, from an egg comes the next generation, life. As well as, of course, in terms of the cyclical nature of life, it also represents resurrection of the dead. Which also, by the way, that is why an egg is a part of what religion's holiday? Easter. Yeah, of course, same reason. Okay, next one, Harosik. Harosik, notice, we will dip our mora and also our korech, Harosik, making it a sandwich. Okay, that's later on in the service, of course. They're just listing the various items. Harosik, number why? The sticky harosik reminds us of the thick cement we built with Egypt out of the bricks. Okay, you've heard this before. Harosik is usually a mixture of apples, nuts, and wine, unless you're from Israel or the Middle East. And last year at the Women's Seder, our friend from Israel, Judith David, made the harosik, and it was made from dates and figs and all kinds of yummy kinds of things.
And
Yeah,
orange.
Tony, do me a favor. I gotta be able, I wanna see you. Oh, nuts, but I moved over. Okay, good, it's great to see you. So anyway, it's a bit, obviously there's many different cultures have different techniques of it, okay? That was different, definitely. I was brought up with the apples, nuts and wine and of course the Manischewitz. And you get drunk on the harosik alone, because I love harosik, right? And amen, and by the way, it is chopped up, and just I'll add, this is a kind of to get a laugh out of you, I hope. Back on Long Island, I would visit, and our synagogue would visit many nursing homes and the assisted living facilities in the community. And in the beginning, early years, probably before fax machines were invented, because I'm so old, I've been around for so long. But before fax machines, you had to write something down actually and mail it to someone or deliver it. Remember those? Yeah. Actually, a friend of mine didn't understand the fax machine. And she said to me once, how does the paper go into the wires and come out the other end? Okay. Anyway, is that in the early years, I would verbally tell the recreation director how to make the foods for Passover. However, Ben, you okay?
Oh, yeah, because you told me to move over, so I was.
Or do I want to be able to see your face? That's why.
Not him?
No, I can, yeah, his face looks good too, but you're much good. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, okay, so anyway, is that I verbally gave the instruction to these recreation directors. It's interesting that our religious services were always under recreation, which says something immediately, right, Barbara? It's recreation, so like playing ping pong. Oh, you have religious rabbis here, okay? And in many places also it's funny because they had religious services where in the bingo room. So behind me would be a bingo board and we'd be praying. Interesting. Okay, anyway, I would verbally, and I'm not a cook, of course, I'm a microwaver and I'm proud of it. So to the best of my abilities, describe how to make these complicated foods to non-Jewish people. And so I arrived at this one nursing home, and she didn't understand what about harosik. No one understands about harosik. No one does. What is that? Chocolate, nuts, and wine. So anyway, she thought that I said blenderize. So we had corrosive smoothies. You couldn't put it on a matzah, you had to drink it, which is what we ended up doing. And actually, I had a great idea, and I'm still trying to sell this one. Put a little vodka in the corrosive smoothie, vodka in the corrosive, would be a great drink, right? Okay. So anyway, continuing this, the shank bone, the roa. Our custom is to eat the zeroa on the night of the Seder, of course. If the zeroa is boiled before it is roasted, this bone with meat on it represents the carbon pesach, another offering. Now, in the Sephardic community, I have heard that in some Sephardic communities, they actually eat a lamb for Passover. Ashkenazim do not allow the lamb to be eaten until the temple is rebuilt, the third temple, and then there will actually be a lamb to sacrifice the Paschal meeting, springtime lamb. This was another kind of funny thing with these nursing homes. I say to them, we need to provide a roasted lamb bone, shank bone for the lamb. I thought that I kind of explained it, but you're doing this in those early days, I did it over the phone. So I get to this one nursing home, and the recreation director, it was lovely. I mean, she really wanted to please me. Here's a matzah, corrosive was normal today, not the smoothie. And then she gave me, and I have the bone for you. Well, sorry for the fact it was still wrapped up in the styrofoam and plastic container from wall bounds, raw, bloody, gross. I looked at the label and what? Yeah, right. Well, I looked at the label and I said to her, I'm a liberal rabbi, I'm reformed, but I really cannot hold up this ham bone. I said to her lamb bone, but she thought I said ham bone. And I said, I'm sorry, I can't hold that up. And thank you very much, you did a good job, whatever. Okay, the matzah, we'll talk about that, chazeret, and the mara, which there's two kinds of lettuce. One lettuce, and by the way, because you'll notice, on a Seder plate, you have all these spaces to fill up. So you have to fill up with these different things. And so you have one for parsley, but then you have another one for a lettuce type lettuce, not a bitter lettuce, in order to remind you of springtime. Okay. There are, you count on the next page, 14 items. I'm sure all of you know the word Seder means order or arrangement. It does not mean meal. I know that there are some families, they think it's Thanksgiving, and they invite the family and friends over, they make a l'chaim if you're lucky, and they say, okay, let's eat and let's go home. Okay, it is not a dinner. Yes, a wonderful dinner, but the bottom line is that the word Seder means order or arrangement based upon these 14 items. Therefore, if the word Seder means order or arrangement, then the items should be done in that order. So let's say, for instance, I love corrosive. So I sit down at the Seder table, and I say, okay, everyone's have corrosive first. I like corrosive, I want it now. Guess what? You can't do it now. You have to do it in this order. Whether the order makes any sense or not, it doesn't make a bit of difference. So let's put that aside. Okay. And let's look at some of the items in the Haggadah that I thought would be interesting to explain to you, since these might be some of the parts of the Haggadah that you would skip over. So we all have this Haggadah. Again, as I said the other night in services, if you are running your own Seder, it is very important that everyone has the same book. It doesn't matter what book you have. There are many beautiful Haggadot today. Some of you might have older ones that are like original to your family with matzah crumbs in it. That's 70 years old, or Manischewitz stains in it. Okay, that's your family. Okay, it's tradition, right? Okay. So anyway, you want to make sure everyone has the same one. So this is the one we're using here, and we'll be using a week from Saturday night. So if you notice down on the word answer, right above the words in English, obviously page 9, it says uncover the matzah and begin the reply. The rabbis who wrote the Haggadah 2,000 years ago approximately were incredible pedagogues, meaning teachers. They understood that to keep not only children but adults focused and awake, Stan, you have to keep on doing different kinds of things. So notice you have the 3 matzah at the main part of the table, uncover them. Why? Because everyone says, so then, what's that guy doing? He's walking over there uncovering the matzah. You'll notice in a few minutes they cover the matzah again, without doing anything, without saying anything. They're constantly doing different things. Now, the first paragraph here, Avadim Hayinu, simply talks about the Exodus from Egypt. Okay, but it's the next paragraph which many people skip over because, oh, hi guys, take a Haggadah over there and a piece of paper. Okay,
Sign in.
wow. Oh, page 9, sorry. Okay. So notice at the bottom of the page, it is told that Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Joshua, Rabbi Elazar, the son of Azariah, Rabbi Akiva, and Rabbi Tarfon sat all, that's page 10, in Bnei Barak, telling the story of the Exodus from Egypt towards morning. The students came to tell them that it was time for the morning prayers. Now, again, you can say, what is that? What is this? Each one of these sections is really another section of the book, having nothing to do with the one before that or the one after that, but it does give an insight into something. The Seder, the basic parts of the Seder were written 2,000 years ago during the Roman occupation of Israel. Rome basically started the occupation of Israel, if I remember correctly, somewhere around the year 60 or 70 BCE. So this is approximately 70, 80 years later. And Rome, just like Greece before that, and the Greek Syrian empires before that, and the Egyptians before that, they ruled with an iron fist and took away the freedom of Jews to live a Jewish life, to teach their children Torah, and certainly as well forbade circumcision of male boys, which of course is a basic part of Judaism. And so it was that, obviously, within time, the Jews began rebellion against the Roman occupation of the Holy Land. And these 5 rabbis were the rabbinic leadership of the rebellion against Rome. The actual rebellion began somewhere around the year 136 of the Common Era. And over 10,000 Jewish soldiers were killed during the war. Our warrior, our leader, was a man whose name was Bar Kokhba, the son of the star. He was killed also, but they believed that he would be the Mashiach, the Messiah. Because our belief was, remember going back to earlier this year, we talked about the Messiah. The Jewish people believed that the Messiah would be one who would save us and bring about our freedom from enslavement or from occupation of, in this case, of a foreign government. These 5 rabbis, what were they doing here in Bnei Barak? By the way, if you know anything about Israel today, Bnei Barak is a very, very Orthodox section. And they were doing just like Jews do today. They were studying Torah. But they were studying Torah according to the commentaries about this paragraph. They were sitting in a basement type area below ground. They were what? In hiding. Because they really weren't studying the Torah. They were studying the documents of rebellion. They were plotting a revolution against Rome. And so this is really, if you would describe this paragraph to those people at your Seder, they would say, wow, this makes this so real. You could say, what were they doing? Well, on page 10, the last sentence, towards morning, the students came to tell them that it was time for the morning prayers. What is that all about? Yes, morning comes, you say, if you're a traditional Jew or doesn't matter who you are, you say Shachrit, the morning prayers. But what was this really like? For those of you ever saw the marvelous Broadway show Guys and Dolls, and remember, oh, it's good old reliable Nathan, Detroit. Okay, Nathan Detroit was running what? A gambling hall, right? And there's a great scene where the roulette tables and the poker tables are going on, and all of a sudden someone says, I forget what the person says, something, and everything is covered up because the cops are coming in. Hide the stuff, or whatever they said. Well, this is what happened was, these 5 rabbis all night long, because if you're going to be plotting a revolution, do you do it during the day? No, you do it during the night. But now there's someone, all of a sudden, the Roman soldiers were walking along the street, wherever it was in Bnei Barak, and the Roman soldiers were coming, because they probably heard that there was this revolution afoot, and immediately this one of the students went down the stairs and said, Shema, Shema. Immediately, meeting the morning prayers, the time to say the Shema, which is the code word for putting away all of the documents of revolution. Take out the Torah, take out your Siddur, take out your prayer books, and pretend you're studying now. Go to study and go to pray. This paragraph, to me, is one of the most dramatic, because all 5 rabbis, by the way, were tortured and executed by the Romans in the rebellion in horrible ways. And by the way, they are mentioned during the Yom Kippur service, in the afternoon service, in terms of the torture and their deaths. They died as martyrs for the Jewish people. So this paragraph is just, right, so powerful. Okay, next paragraph. Has nothing to do with what I just read. Although it mentions the same guy, Rabbi Elazar, the son of Azariah. He said, I am near 70 years of age. Oh, okay. And could not understand why the exodus from Egypt should be recounted in the evening service until Ben Zoma, another rabbi, explained. The question becomes what? Because remember, the Haggadah, these rituals, these ceremonies, 2,000 years ago were being created. We take this for granted. Yeah, here's my Savior, here's the book. Do it, whatever I want with it, do less, do more, whatever. There was a time when none of this existed. And the rabbis and their genius are sitting around and saying, well, when do we do this? When do we celebrate the Seder? Because the Bible, the Torah, does not have anything about, there's no Seder. There's no printing press yet, okay? There's no Manischewitz and no strikes either yet. They haven't been invented. But if you go back 3,000 years ago in the Bible, and we know this because later on they say this, what do? Jews, even before the Passover from Egypt, from Egypt, right? Got together in the springtime and took a Paschal, because the word Paschal, Pesach, lamb, means a springtime lamb, get the firstborn of their flock, slaughter it, cook it on the BBQ, the barbie, and then they eat it, and they give a blessing to God for springtime. Because if one lamb is born, guess what? They're gonna have more babies, and they're gonna have a flock back here, okay? Life. So they got together every spring. And did they eat matzah? Yes. Way before the, like Bubamisa, it's somewhat of Bubamisa. Matzah is a bread baked on the backs of the Hebrews, we had a little water as they were fleeing Egypt. Guess what? There was matzah way before that. Why? Because, and I said this a couple of weeks ago, I think, matzah is desert bread. If you're in the desert, what don't you have much of? Water. So no matter what kind of bread you eat, it's going to have a minimal amount of water, okay? And so matzah is desert bread. So they got together spring, killed the little lamb, maybe put some lamb on matzah and had a sandwich and said, okay, springtime, we give thanks to God. Later on, of course, of the exodus from Egypt, then they began to recall this moment of the exodus from Egypt, but that wasn't until much, much later on. So the question now becomes, Rabbi Elazar is asking the question, then when do we do this ritual? When do we have the Seder? Do we do it when we wake up in the morning? Do we do it at night? When? And he says, the Bible says that you may remember the day of you going forth from Egypt, all the days of your life. Meaning what? All the days. What is a day? Morning and night. Ben Zoma explained the days of your life mean only the days. All the days of your life includes the nights only. The sages say the days of your life refers to the contemporary world. All the days of your life includes also the days of the Messiah. So what they begin to then say is, guess what? These 24 hours are to be devoted to what? To recounting the Exodus from Egypt, the story of the Passover. But notice those last words. They're now saying the Jewish tradition going back to most ancient times says that there are, I hate the word world because we think of this globe that we're on called the earth being a world, right? Okay. But the word world actually means dimensions. There are two worlds or dimensions. One is Olam Hazeh, this dimension that we are living in now. And Olam Haba, which is the dimension to come, or the dimension of the next world. Tony, that
Are
question?
you answering this or are you?
No, I'm talking.
Okay, I was looking for that, I was.
No, now I'm just talking on, yeah, okay. So,
Continue to have your conversation.
so anyway, includes the days of Messiah. And so what the beginning to, right here, this bottom paragraph teaches, throws out a very interesting idea. And that it begins to allude to what? We have our existence now, but there is also going to be in the future, the days of your life, days, has to do with the coming of the Mashiach, the Messiah. And I'll mention this a little bit later on, but my belief is that the entire Seder is written as a preparation for the Messianic period. Because it was written during the Roman occupation of Israel, much of it, when guess what? The Jews were looking for a Mashiach, a Messiah such as Bar Kokhba, to save them from what? Roman occupation. They wanted to be what? Free. It's all about freedom. And you could say, well, let's assume that this is written in the year 100 of the Common Era. The Exodus from Egypt was around the year 1300 BCE. So you could say, why would anyone recreate and discuss again, bring to from the an event that happened 1200 years before? Because they needed to inspire the Jews of their time to say, you know something, just as God, as described in the second book of the Torah, brought us out of our slavery in Egypt, God will bring us out of our slavery unto Rome. And so they recalled it the major seminal event in Jewish history, the Exodus from Egypt. Whether it happened or not exactly this way, doesn't matter. Barbara?
Doesn't it though say in the Torah to celebrate this every year?
No. The Passover, yes, but not the Seder. No Seder yet. Yes, very good. It does say in the Torah that you shall recall the Exodus from Egypt, and it talks about eating the Paschal lamb, eating the bitter herb, and also matzah. But the Seder, this whole thingamajig, has not been created yet. About 1,000 years later, probably, or maybe approximately. Yeah. Okay. So I will come back to that. Now, let's turn to page 12. Most of you are familiar with this word midrash. M-I-D-R-A-S-H, midrash. A midrash was I think people are writing midrashim, the plural today. A midrash is a rabbinic commentary to the Torah. They would take the words of the Torah, either individual words or phrases or verses, and comment on them and try to explain them either during the time it was written or during their own time of the rabbis who were making these comments. So let us look where it says, notice, page 12, cover the matzah. Why? Because they said they wanted to keep on doing something. We just, a few pages before, remember page 9, we uncovered the matzah, now cover the matzah. You can say, why? Yeah, just do it. Okay, they had people doing all kinds of this constant movement at the Seder table. Raise a cup of wine. Why? Because you got nothing else to do. Raise a cup of wine. And you say this. This is the promise that has sustained our ancestors and for us. For page 12, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I should be announcing pages. Page 12. For was not one enemy alone who rose up against us to destroy us. In every generation there are those who rise up against us and seek to destroy us, but the Holy One, blessed be He, saves us from their hands. So in a sense, you're making a toast to God. Thanks, God, l'chaim. You raise your cup of wine. There's no blessing said, but you put the wine down then. Okay, so the Haggadah is always having people or the leader of the Seder doing something. You're not just sitting around, because what happens if you sit around too long, Aline, and drinking wine?
Fall asleep.
Like Stan, you're gonna fall asleep. Okay. You wanna cover the matzah? Fine. Do something. And continue. Okay, now. This is what's going to be discussed, mentioned, or alluded to in this one paragraph will take up the next couple of pages. So this might be the part of this Seder that you leave out. Consider what Laban, the Aramean, attempted to do to our father Jacob. So notice what it's doing is, they're talking about the Exodus from Egypt? No. It's going back to Jacob in the Bible, the Torah, way before the Exodus. While Pharaoh decreed only against the males, Laban attempted to uproot all, meaning to kill us all. As it is written, quote, an Aramean sought to destroy my father, and he went down to Egypt and sojourned there, few in number. There he became a nation, great, mighty, and numerous. Okay. So you now have a verse from the Torah, from the book of Genesis, and Aramean sought to destroy my father, and etc. And what they're going to do is they're going to now make a midrash out of it, meaning to explicate it and break it up into different parts. Notice, next right below that. He went down to Egypt, compelled by God's decree, and sojourned there. This means that Jacob, our father, did not go down to Egypt. Next paragraph, few in number, as it is written. Next paragraph, there he became a nation. Next paragraph, great mighty. Notice what's going on here. And you need to explain this to people, otherwise they wonder, where are these things coming from? What are they quoting to? What are they referring to? They're all referring to the one verse that was in that paragraph. When you put down the cup of wine and uncover the matzah, and Aramean sought to destroy my father, and he went down to Egypt and sojourned there, few in number. There he became a nation, great, mighty, numerous. All of this continue, look at this, page 13. Every paragraph is simply breaking apart that verse. Page 14. Page 15. All of that is anyone here conducting your own Seder? Okay, if you want to impress your guests, Tony and Barbara, say this is a midrash. They'll say, wow, you really know a lot. Okay, this is a midrash. This is a rabbinic midrash, meaning a rabbinic commentary, taking one verse of the Torah and look at it, spreading it out through 3 pages, word by word, phrase by phrase, trying to explicate. I love that word. I never used that before, I don't think. Explicate it, break it up and give in terms of what it could be. And of course, you can see what it means. And by the way, if you have a kind of group that has difficulty focusing, okay, then I would say this is the time of the story that you simply tell the story of the Exodus from Egypt. And in your own words, Eric.
Well, so is this back to what Laban did to Jacob? But Laban didn't try to destroy Jacob. He just wanted to keep his daughters and keep his herd there. He didn't destroy him.
If you notice, you notice what it says in the Torah, and Aramean was supposedly is Laban, okay? I don't think it's
They're all Arameans, right?
what is Aramean? Turkey and Arab, right?
Here in this book, it says Syrian.
Syrian, yeah, okay. But the two Jewish Aramean sought to destroy my father. In other words, according to this verse of the Torah, initially Laban wanted to destroy Jacob. It doesn't say that. We saw the rest of the story, and Rachel and Leah and all that stuff. Yeah, but that's what they took on. Because why do they have to put an error? Why do they have to make quote this verse? Because Pharaoh tried to destroy us, right, by killing the males, and according to this, Laban wanted to destroy Jacob because if Jacob had, I don't know, been destroyed, whatever that exactly means, there'd be no Jewish people because he was in the line of the patriarchs of the Jewish people, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. If you want to kill Jacob, we're kaput, obviously. Okay, so yes, a good question as always. But okay, now notice on page 15. Okay, page 15, of course, at the bottom of the page. I'm sorry. Page 15. Spill 3 drops of wine, one for each of the disasters. Okay, now it's beginning to move toward the 10 plagues. But notice what they do here is, again, they are simply in this part saying that they're what? Blood, fire, and pillars of smoke. What is this related to? Lynn, do you know? leaving Egypt, the blood of the what? Firstborn, the plague, the blood, the last of the plagues. What is the fire and pillars of smoke? We talked about that last week in the Torah portion. It represents God, remember, as we went through the desert, God, during the daytime, we followed a cloud during the day and a pillar of fire at night. Okay, so simply, all of a sudden, it's throwing this in, and simply spill 3 drops of wine for each one of them. It doesn't say why he had 3 drops of wine. In the same way, we're going to be spilling in a few moments 10 drops of wine. You just throw this in. Now, let us do this for a second. Let's see. Right under that, another interpretation of the verse as follows. Oh, I should put that out. Let's see, where is it?
15.
Yeah, no, just, oh, go back to page 14 for a minute. If you count with me, 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs down, page 14. And the Lord brought us forth from Egypt with a strong hand, with an outstretched arm, with great terror, and with signs and wonders. Okay, this is another verse. Okay, this is another verse I'm going to comment on. So notice what it says here. And God brought us forth from Egypt, 1, with a strong hand, 2, with an outstretched arm, 3, with terror, and 4, signs and wonders. Okay, or 1, strong hand, 2, outstretched arm, 3, great terror, 4, signs, 5, wonders. Okay, but now I'm going to do the same thing again with that verse we just saw in Midrash. And the Lord brought us forth from Egypt, passed through the land of Egypt with a strong hand, page 15, with an outstretched arm, with great terror, with signs and wonders. In other words, I'm going to again do a Midrash on that verse now. Got it? Everybody understand? Okay, shake your heads, put your eyes twice. Okay. Notice now at the bottom of page 15. Another interpretation of the verse, okay, that we just gave, another interpretation is as follows. With a strong hand means 2 plagues. With an outstretched arm, 2 plagues. With great terror, 2 plagues. And with signs, 2. And wonders, 2. This refers to the 10 plagues which the Holy One, blessed be He, brought upon the Egyptians in Egypt, and they are as follows. In other words, they're now saying in that verse we just looked at, right? There are the 4, we'll see in a minute, or 5 different things that God did. Terrors, strong hands, strong arms, signs, wonders, etc., right? But now they have a big problem because there were 10 plagues. So now I'm going to bring together this in some really weirdo way, as you'll see in a moment. And that is they're going to say that with each one of these things that God did them with the plagues. 2 plagues for each thing, because you have 5 items, and 2 for each. 5 times 2 equals what? Everyone follow? 10. Okay. Okay, page 16. We now have 10 plagues. Okay, we know that. And by the way, I'm sure you're all familiar with the ritual. You take your pinky, dip it in the wine, and you take a drop of the wine off, because it represents the blood of each of the plagues. You take away from your sweetness, because you're not supposed to be experiencing sweetness or joy over the hurt or the death of anyone, including anyone who wishes to destroy you. Okay, heard that before. Okay, now we're going to now go to page 18. Because now you're going to be able to follow this, I hope. This is like weird. And again, why they put this in there? Someone has to try to explain it, keeps people awake, hopefully. Because by now you've been sitting already for 2 hours, the traditional saying. But Yosef the Galilean said the following. How can you demonstrate that following the 10 plagues in Egypt, the Egyptians were smitten with 50 plagues at the Red Sea? Now, they don't mean this. There were only 10 plagues. But there was that verse about the outstretched arm, the outstretched hand, the signs, the wonders, the terrors. They're going to play around with numbers now, and this verse of the Torah. So follow this, okay? Of one of the plagues in Egypt, it was written, the soothsayers said to Pharaoh, this is the finger of God. While at the Red Sea it is written, and Israel saw the great hand which the Lord God had shown against Egypt. And the people feared the Lord and believed in the Lord and in his servant Moses. If one finger of God in Egypt brought about 10 plagues, because it says, and the finger of God in one, blood, Kenan, Sephardeia, Kenan, Dam, all one finger of God did it all. Therefore, if there are 10, how many fingers do we have though? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay? And you have 10 plagues for each finger. How many plagues did my hand do? 50. Okay, next verse. Rabbi Eliezer, they had absolutely nothing to do with their time, said, how can you prove that every plague which the Holy One, blessed be He, brought about upon the Egyptians was fourfold in character? Every plague, how many plagues are there? 10. And then each one is fourfold in character. 10 times 4 is what? Very good. Mazel tov. Okay. Wrath, what? I'm sorry. He sent against the Egyptians in his burning anger, wrath, indignation, trouble, and the messengers of evil. Then another verse in the Torah. Wrath is 1, indignation 2, trouble 3, and messengers of 4. If then in Egypt they were smitten with 10 fourfold plagues, making 40, then following the early interpretation of the Red Sea, they suffered 200 plagues. Why? 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. 50 times 4 is what? 200. So 200 plagues. Next one. Rabbi Akiva said, how can you show that every plague which the Holy One, blessed be He, brought upon the Egyptians in Egypt were fivefold in character? It is written, He sent against the Egyptians in his burning anger, wrath, indignation, trouble, and the message of evil. His burning anger 1, wrath 2, indignation 3, messengers of evil, trouble 4, messengers of evil 5. So therefore I have 5 times what? I have 50 times now what? 10 times, that's 50, right? And then now therefore is 50 times 5 is 250. So now it's 250 plagues. Okay, this is the part of the saying probably skipped over.
Always.
Now you know. Yeah. So you could say, did the rabbis mean this? No. But, and this is the interesting thing about this book, the Haggadah, which is a great creation, literary sense, religious as well. They these pages that I just shared with you, that probably many of you do skip over, because you have to try to explain this to people already had 1 cup of wine and falling asleep and saying, when do we eat already? I can't stand this, okay. And that is why it shows their enjoyment about taking the Torah and just thinking about it and making and having games with it and enjoying the Torah as a basis of their intellectual life. Yeah, stand that question.
Yeah, what was there a transition between the time the priest would be in charge of both reading or doing something like this, to when they both is establishment a rabbi reading a.
Yes, okay, Stan's question is, what is the time period from when the Kohanim would be doing various things, and that's the same, okay? But and then the rabbis, keep in mind, the second temple was destroyed in the year 70 of the Common Era. Once that temple was destroyed, the Kohanim no longer had any place to officiate, to do anything, nothing, they couldn't do anything. Because their whole, it's sort of like, let's say, I don't know.
But they're still supposed to be.
Yeah, let's say a person became an expert in repairing VCRs. Okay, guess what? That person's out of a job today. Almost, more or less. Okay,
Sure, people still left.
I know I do too, but I know what I'm trying to say. They basically, unfortunately for the Kohanim, they basically put themselves in a dead-end position, so to speak, because since everything they did was revolved around the temple in Jerusalem, everything, and the temple was no longer there, they couldn't do anything whatsoever, they were finished, kaput. Okay, so therefore, it was after 70 that this was created. The Seder ritual was created after the year 70, much of it probably around the year 100, as again, going back to my original statement, because the Jews were using the Seder ritual to inspire the people to do what? To rebel against Roman occupation. It was an inspirational ritual to fight against Rome. Okay,
But what happens in the car?
going, nothing. They were out of a job.
But there's a second. But the Cohen, okay, are the masters of the ritual.
Exactly, and so many, there are people, anyone here a Kohen? No, Eric is, okay, so Eric is getting ready, prepares every single day for when the temple in Jerusalem will be rebuilt. And he'll be able to go back to wear that outfit that he wore one night here at temple, and he'll be able to function again as a Kohen. Yeah, so yes, we have kept alive the concept of the Kohen. We've kept it alive, but they have no place to practice or do anything. Although in an Orthodox synagogue, for those of you who've been to Orthodox services,
So they don't transition into the new procedure,
no,
the new tradition.
no. No, whatever they'll do whatever they can do, but they're very, very limited. Because now every Jew is like a Kohen, all of us, every one of us stands before God, like a Kohen did in ancient times. Yeah. But on the other hand, so for instance, in Reform Judaism, we wanted to democratize Judaism. And say whether you're Kohen, a Levite, or an Israelite, you're all equal before God. So Reform Judaism did away with that, the whole structure completely. We ignore it, whether it's good, whether it's bad, whatever. We feel that we're all equal before God. But if you go to a conservative service or an Orthodox service, the distinctions are continued. The first Aliyah, the first Torah blessing is given to a person who's of a Kohen family. The second person, a Levite, right, Norm? And then the last person, all the other aliyot, all the Torah blessings, the rest of them are Israelites. It reminds me when Judy and I went one of our first cruises on the QE2. And the QE2 was a traditional old-time ship where you went to the dining room based upon the level of your cabin and how much money you spent on the cruise. There was a definite difference in the decorations in the dining rooms, and plus the food was fed up, but sure, why not? Okay, today that doesn't go to Norwegian, on a Norwegian cruise, everyone eats this, you can be the most wealthy person, the poor person, wealthy people probably have the food delivered to their suite on the top floor there. But the fact is, it's democratized. But still, in conservative Orthodox, they still follow the tradition of the Kohen receiving a special honor. And those of you who've ever been to an Orthodox service, on certain holidays of the year, actually in some places, the Kohanim actually in Israel particularly, every single day, they say the Birkat HaKohanim, the blessing of the Yevarechecha prayer, and every single day, the Kohanim are called up to bless the people. In certain other Orthodox synagogues, they only come up during the holidays of Yom Kippur, Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot. Okay, and they come up and bless the people. Yeah, with a special ritual. And then there are those who take all of this very seriously. So for instance, when I was a chaplain, particularly at New York Hospital, at New York Cornell Medical Center in those days, not Cornell anymore. Well, Cornell Medical School is still there. It's now whatever, Presbyterian or something. But anyway, I would get a call from people from the Satmar Hasidic group who are Kohanim. And they asked me, what is the distance that they're visiting their uncle Shlomi on the 4th floor? What is the difference between room 407 and the morgue in the hospital? Because a person who is a Kohen cannot be within a certain distance of a dead body. Because any moment the Mashiach, the Messiah, could come, immediately the temple in Jerusalem is rebuilt, and immediately all the Kohanim, including Eric, would have to go to Israel But the good thing is that, Eric, you won't have to buy a ticket because you're gonna be
Oh, good.
whisked there by God somehow. So you have to be able to buy a ticket on their allowance, costs a lot of money, and function there. And so a person who is a Kohen in family, a tradition, has to be prepared any moment, so they cannot be near a dead body. Because if a Kohen is near a dead body within a certain distance, they become in the state of impurity and therefore would have to go into quarantine. But that makes sense, because we touch a dead body, and then in the ancient temple in Jerusalem, you start to cook a barbecue, then you can bring an infection from the dead body to the food and kill everybody, okay? So this is very serious, and I'll tell you one other cute story, it was really a very interesting story, actually. Cute and interesting, I think. Is that one of the local hospitals that I visited on Long Island was Good Samaritan Hospital, which is a Catholic hospital. And one day I get a call from a Dr. Cohn, okay, right? And he called me up and he said he's interviewing for a position at the hospital, but he wants to know where is the morgue located. Because depending upon where it's located, he might not be able to take the job because he can't go near the morgue. As a doctor, no less. So I have no idea. I mean, most hospitals I've been involved with, the morgue is where? In the basement, that's where it belongs, really, not in the lobby. Well, this is close to the lobby. So I did some research and I found out the morgue at Good Samaritan Hospital is on the first floor. And it's off, not on the lobby, in the lobby, but it's a distance on the first floor away from the main entrance last floor, but it's on the first floor. That's where it is, whatever it is. So I called them up and I told them and said, you have to do whatever you have to do. But then I became very interested in this about morgues and Kohanim. So God bless Google, and I Googled morgues, and Kohanim in Jewish hospitals. I was particularly interested in Jewish hospitals. And Maimonides Hospital came up, which is a very substantial hospital in Brooklyn. It's the hospital that serves the very Hasidic and Orthodox communities in Borough Park, which is a very Orthodox part of Brooklyn. And you won't believe, maybe you will believe this, okay? They actually have on every floor in Maimonides Hospital a Kohen red light. If a body is being transferred from a patient's room where the patient just died to the morgue, red lights flash on that floor, warning all Kohanim, and they need to leave the floor immediately before the body is transferred. Okay, now you could say, what is this? But that's what they call tradition, it's tradition. But so going back to Stan's question, sort of, a long way around, is that there are people who still take the concept of the Kohen very seriously, okay? A Kohen can, let's say for instance, a person's last name is Cohen, and they are Orthodox, they observe this, and their first cousin died, they cannot go to the cemetery, they cannot attend the service, because again, the same reason. A Kohen can only attend to the burial of a parent, no other relative. Yeah, maybe a child, but not anyone else beyond the immediate relatives. No, I don't think so, I'm not sure. Yeah, but doctors can't be in the cemetery at all, because their bodies all over the place. Yeah, go on.
I heard, I don't want to shoot, that in the temple times, the high priest would be in the Holy of Holies, and he was the only one in that room. And the question was, what would happen if he had a heart attack? And I was told the answer that the high priest went into that room with a rope tied around him, so that if he should drop dead, they were able to pull him out.
Yeah, well, the rope was actually on his right foot, I think was, and they pulled him out, yeah. You cannot turn your back to God. So when he went into the Holy of Holies, after he said his prayers on the afternoon of Yom Kippur, the rope would pull him and go out this way, okay?
You can't grab the roof step.
Yeah,
But you always have to be.
yeah, facing. Okay, so that was interesting, right? Okay, so let's finish this off by going to the parts of the Seder, which I would touch upon. Okay, so going back to page 7. Obviously, first of all, this Friday, this week, this year is a Saturday night, so you would, if you're so inclined, you make Haggadah. Okay, to mark the end of the Shabbat, and the beginning of the new week, and you light candles for Yom Tov for the holiday. Okay, so, and by the way, you'll notice that a Haggadah does not have those rituals in it. Most Haggahs, and this one included, do not have the blessing over the candles, or for Saturday night Haggadah marking the end of the Sabbath, the beginning of the next week. Why? Because they have nothing to do with the Seder. They are an observance of the holiday. That's why. Okay, lighting up the Yom Tov, the holiday candles, have nothing to do with the Seder.
What happened, you cook for a Seder on, that's gonna be on a Saturday evening,
What do you think, Friday?
but now you wouldn't have that on your Kippur.
No, also there's a certain amount of period of time when you wait for the end of Shabbat and the beginning, and you start your Seder. This year's Seder is gonna be very, very late in Orthodox home, obviously. Yeah, very late. Yeah, they'll be really starving, they'll be throwing food at each other probably. Okay, page 7, the first of 4 cups of wine.
And say, you know, I'm gonna,
You'll have a Seder on Yom Kippur.
I said, so in the first night of Passover, be the same as the first night. Can't have it.
No, you can't, you'll never have it, and the calendar works itself out.
Right.
And first of all, it's in the springtime also, so you'll never have it. Okay,
It's not
page,
the same time of the year.
it's not the same time of the year, right? Okay, so, page 7, obviously, number 1, I'll do definitely the first cup of wine. Stan is very happy about that. Number 2 is washing hands without saying the blessing. Number 3, the carpets, okay, dipping the salt water during dipping the parsley and salt on it. On page 8, number 4, I would definitely go to breaking the middle matzah. Again, I'm not taking you through the whole Seder because you'd be here for hours, so I'm not gonna tell you what every single thing means, but everything does have a meaning to it. And number 5, holding up the matzah and saying this is the bread of affliction, the bread of our ancestors, etc. Certainly that, and now the 4 questions. I will relate to you, however, the fact is I mentioned earlier, is that my belief is that this is really a rehearsal for the coming of the Messiah. When at that time, the Messianic era, Mashiach, is there'll be a great Seder, a magnificent Seder. Imagine having that catering job, I love it, because all the Jews who are dead will be brought back to life with the resurrection of the dead. And now all of us will be together at a great Seder somewhere or other. And at that time, there'll be 5 cups of wine. Because we won't need Elijah's cup for Elijah anymore, because Elijah will have fulfilled his mission of bringing on the Messiah. Understand? Yeah. And so therefore, at that Seder, there will be 5 cups of wine. There will also be 5 questions, because the 5th question, page 9, will be what? Why on this night we eat the Paschal lamb? Because according to Ashkenazi tradition, and certainly even Sephardic tradition, there will not be a sacrifice of a springtime Paschal lamb until the 3rd temple is rebuilt. The 3rd temple will be rebuilt when the Mashiach comes. And so therefore, there'll be a 5th question, why on this night do we eat the Paschal lamb? Okay, interesting. I then, in my status that I do during pages 9, all the way, I'm sorry, I don't go through all the stuff I just went over with you. I do skip over it in a community Seder because we much too much for most people. They'd be screaming at me, you're going, when do we eat, go to bed, okay? And therefore, I would go to page 19. But I do then, if I do, I'm sorry, no, I made a mistake, we're sorry, page 16 for the plagues.
Yeah.
To page 16. In between, I tell the story of the Exodus from Egypt, or I might go back to the story of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but I retell the story. By the way, some Haggadahs, of course, do this in various printed versions and forms. There are other ways to do this, to say the least. If any of you are so blessed with having young people at your Seder, they have playing puppets, and they have puppets to act out the different stories here. You can make it a lot of fun. What I just shared with you with the verses from the Torah and the 10 plagues and the 20 and the 25, most people would be bored out of their minds. Okay, to be honest, okay. Most people would be bored out of their minds. So you really, this is the part where you can become much more, those who are zooming, okay. Okay, you can become much more creative. Okay, in this part of the same ritual. Okay, and then page 16, again, is the 10 plagues, which everyone likes because it kind of, at least they get to, oh, by the way, you must understand, Your pinky is now wet with wine, correct? You cannot lick it. So I always say you cannot flick it and you can't lick it. In other words, I have relatives went like that, okay, not nice. Okay, and you can't lick it because you can't enjoy the wine. But some people say, wow, finally I get to taste something. I just, the only thing I've eaten so far is a piece of parsley, this bit of vegetable in salt water, it's not exciting food. They don't.
Am I confused, cause like the last few times I've been to Passover, the last few times we've done Passover, we drank like lots of wine.
Yeah, that's the first cup already. Yeah, page 7.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Past that, right, okay, now. Continuing now, I will skip to page 19. Of course, that's Dianu. And many Haggadahs have Dianu in various forms. You have to do all, I don't know, you can count yourself, how many verses there are. There's a lot of them. They go all the way to the middle of page 20. However, if you're so inclined, find them all. Sometimes what I like to do is, I'll read it in English and have everyone shout out the word Dianu. So such as, had he brought us from Egypt, not executed judgment against them, it would have been enough, everyone say Dianu. Okay. Or you can sing the song, of course, I know, and a couple of the verses, it's very simple. I would certainly suggest not doing all the 19 and 20. Most people are not gonna sit through that either in Hebrew, even in English. Okay, page 21. This is important because this brings us into the Bible, the Torah part. Rabbi Gamliel used to say, whoever does not explain the following 3 symbols on Passover has not fulfilled our duty. So if anyone were to say to you, what is the focus of this whole thing? It's right here on page 21, page 22. And that is to explain the 3 most important symbols of Passover. And you point to them, or someone holds them up. Obviously, the first one is the Pesach, the shank bone. Remember, it ain't a ham bone. Okay. Then, page 22, the matzah. Then, of course, page 23, the corrosive, the mora, the bitter herb. And then we're going to move. Notice I would skip in this book, there's quite a few things. I would just go to page 26, the second cup of wine. The second cup of wine. And the reason why there are 4 cups of wine is because the book of Exodus, second book of the Torah, chapter 6, verses 6 and 7, there are 4 different Hebrew words for God's redeeming the people of Israel from slavery, freeing us. So for each one of the Hebrew words, there is a cup of wine. In verse 8, there's a 5th word for God redeeming us, saving us, and so therefore there's a 5th cup of wine. And our Seder is reserved for Eliyahu. When the Messiah comes, we will drink 5 cups of wine. I don't know how true this is, but I remember years ago reading in the 60s, there was called the Aquarian Minion at Berkeley. If you know the 60s in Berkeley at all, and they actually, rather than drinking 4 cups of wine, supposedly they smoked 4 joints. I don't think that's possible to get through 4 joints and finish a Seder. I don't think that it's possible, but who knows? Okay. Anyway, number 6, washing of hands. This is the second time we washed hands, right? The second time we say a blessing of the washing of the hands, because now we're going to touch food. And actually, going back to Stan's question in a sense, is that the washing of the hands indicates that the person conducting the Seder is standing in the place of the Kohen, the high priest of ancient Israel. The first time we wash our hands because we're going to bring the animal to us and slaughter him. Basically wash your hands. But now the second time we put him on the barbie and he's cooked, nice, maybe a little bit of the soy sauce, oy vey. Why isn't that soy sauce the Krish Kosher one? Soy vey? Soy vey, right? So you guys using that soy vey. Put a little barbecue sauce on. Now you're ready for your Paschal lamb, right? And so now you're going to wash your hands and say bracha of blessing, natil yadayim, and wash your hands because you're going to eat protein. Okay. So then, of course, 27, people say, thank God, finally, you're almost up to dinner. Okay. So you have, of course, matzah, then with bitter herbs, and then eating bitter herbs and matzah together. And there are various traditions, the Haggadahs point this out quite often. Remember, you have three, you still have two and apart matzahs. Because you broke the middle one earlier on, so you come the afikomen, the dessert, right? And by the way, you do not break the afikomen matzah in half. You break it in two parts. It's not to be broken out, just two parts. I remember, what?
What's the difference if you break it in two parts or in half? It's two.
Because it's not supposed to be something, it doesn't matter, because it's the bread of the slavery. Slaves don't have time to measure things. They're always moving.
Just.
Oh, okay.
You two parts.
Yeah, just do the middle matzah, you break it in part. Okay, just break it. Eric, got a question?
No, but
This crackling, right, exactly, crackling part. Especially you have to, you can't, if any of you buy shmura matzah, which I think the other day in Publix was $50 for 6 of them, the 6 boards, it was $50. Publix, you can forget kosher, the KC or Litz, it might buy $100, God knows. Now probably there's a tariff on matzah, I don't know. Actually, there's never new matzah, I don't think this, it's always tastes old, okay? That's the good thing about matzah, it can never go stale because it starts off stale, right? Yeah, not very many things, but anyway, if you've ever gotten shmura matzah, which is handmade matzah that's circular, you can't break it in half, it's impossible. I know, but the machine-made matzah had those lines on it, and actually, one person who was quite OCD actually would count the number of lines and divide it in half and cut them. No, that's not the idea. You're supposed to enjoy it, just break it down. Anyway, there's different traditions. When for the matzah sandwich, you take the 2 pieces, break it off of the first piece of matzah, and then the third, and then when you do the bitter herb, the Hillel sandwich, you do the bottom one. Every Haggadah describes it differently, whatever your family's tradition is, that's all that matters. Okay, and then simply that's what you eat. Now, on pages 30, all the way, the rest of this, the Haggadah, from page 28 all the way,
It was race after meal.
through, actually before that, let's see.
36 songs.
All the way through page 33 is the Birkat Hamazon, the blessing after meals. If you're not a traditional home, most of the people sitting at your house would not know this prayer. Obviously, if you're so inclined, you can do the Birkat Hamazon, the blessing after meals. But if you do a Seder with it left, the ritual parts that I just described, and you can certainly do this within 1 hour, no problem. Is actually be able to eat and bring people back to finish the Seder. We do that here at the temple. And therefore, you have on page 33, the 3rd cup of wine, and you open the door for Elijah, sing Eliyahu Hanavi, and then stand like this, we go to the 4th cup of wine, see immediately, go 3 to 4, and everyone's happy. Okay. Yeah, or Sharon, so there's there's actually very nice kosher wines for Passover now, not only Sharon's. And then there are various songs at the end of the Seder, the melodies, but certainly probably page 43, you finish the Seder, there's the 4th cup of wine. Then finish the Seder. And then finally, of course, on page 44, there are songs like Adiyahu, if you know that one, God is Mighty. They have that one, there is Who Knows One on page.
Where is the 4th cup?
Oh, 4th cup, go back. 3rd cup is Eliyahu. The 4th cup. Is 42. 42 is the 4th cup. And then page 45 is another song, Who Knows One, which you could sing or you could read it. And quite often what you're supposed to do is each one of the verses is supposed to be done in one breath. And again, it's just creating a fun experience. And then certainly at the very end, you have on page 47, Haggadah. Okay, and in the end, that's it. So any questions?
Yes, if you read all these, that's all the traditionally. Now, how many are we talking?
Or if you did the whole thing, it'd be a couple of hours.
More than a couple.
Oh, yeah, if you did the whole thing, that's why I would suggest in a modern family. Picking out the parts that are most easily manageable and understandable by everyone. So the part that I went through before with the midrash, with the explanations of verses from the Torah, for most families today, it's too much for them. Barbara. Oh,
I was in a Zoom teaching yesterday about the Haggadah, and the teacher was quoting Maimonides. She said that Maimonides said that asking questions is, I'm paraphrasing, but basically the core of the Seder. And in order, she went on to say, I'm not sure if this is Maimonides or her, that as you were saying before, doing things different in order to keep people interested, that asking questions about the Haggadah, about the Seder, about the Passover themes, that asking questions like that for discussion to help to keep people interested and make the Seder more interesting.
well, most definitely, but the thing is, if you're gonna have people asking questions, you have to have the people to answer the questions. A friend of mine, when he had 20 people coming over for Passover and the generations of his family, he would do a tremendous amount of research beforehand, so that when questions were being asked or being asked questions, he knew the answers. But again, it calls for a lot of preparation and knowledge, with anything in Judaism. Yeah, definitely. As it says that as it says with you think about the 4 sons or the 4 people, right? 4 children, whatever you want to call them. The last one is the one who doesn't even know what to ask. In a sense, some of the rabbis point out that the entire rest of the Seder is all in response to the last one who doesn't even know what to ask at all. Because what's the response? Tell them everything. Just start from the beginning, and it does. The next paragraph says, well, let's go back to Abraham. We're gonna tell the whole story of the Jewish people. And I'll end with this. And some of the commentators point out there's actually a 5th child, the 5th person, and that's the one who doesn't even show up. Yeah, because at least even the wicked one, the wicked one, at least is there. Okay, and might be a pain, and I don't know how many of you, I remember one of my cousins, that we went around reading around the table, because in the early days, you had like 30 people at my grandma's house, Grandma Paula, and this was the one who said, no, I don't want to read, okay? And she was also one who went to Egypt later on in her college, I guess, and she came back and said, this is terrible, why are you so negative? We shouldn't be celebrating the death of the Egyptians, forget it, I'm not reading those parts. So she was the Russia, in a sense, the one who was taking herself away from the ritual, from the community, and yet she was at least there, right? Whereas obviously the key is, and unfortunately in today's world, there are too many 5th persons. There are too many people who don't attend to any of these things, and that's the great challenge that we have. Yeah. So anyway, I wish everyone, okay, now next week, for those of you who are so inclined, I'm going to share with you the ritual about Sefirat HaOmer that we do, many Reform synagogues do it well, which is the counting of the days of the 49 days between Passover, 2nd day Passover, and the holiday of Shavuot. But I'm going to go through with you something which we haven't done before, and that is the Kabbalistic meditations through the Sefirot for each one of the days. So I'm going to have to give a brief explanation of Kabbalah, the Sefirah, and then to take you through that. Because each day is a combination of the Sefirah, the energy level from God for the week and the day. And they're interacting with each other as divine forms of energy. So that's next week, same time, same station, same place. Everyone, shalom, travel safely, enjoy your home. Haggadah, Haggadah.
Thank you, Rabbi.
You too.